Yeah, 50 years later and the Buffalo Springfield still have it right. Something sure is happening here, and what it isn't exactly clear. And Retake Our Democracy and its radio show and its blog and our Zoominars and in our statewide alert system tries to give you the information you need to be active and to do something about what's going on here. Good morning. You're listening to Retake Our Democracy, a 30-minute weekly show that airs every Saturday at 8:30 a.m. on KSFR 101.1 FM, your public radio station, and also streaming live from ksfr.org in case you're outside the bandwidth of the radio station. I'm Paul Gibson, the host of Retake Our Democracy, and we had a last-minute cancellation for this week's show today, airing today. And so on Friday morning, Roxanne and I decided to do a solo show so that we could keep up the retake momentum. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. This is Roxanne Barber. I'm co-founder of Retake Our Democracy. Welcome.
Yeah, this could be a little uneven. You know, we didn't prepare for this. And
yeah, he just asked me about 15 minutes ago if I would do a show with him. So bear with us.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of improv this morning.
And improv isn't always easy on the radio, especially when you're also recording it for the video. So we had to
spruce up a bit.
And then all of this came on the heels of the bombshell news in the middle of the night that not only had one of Trump's top aides tested positive for the COVID virus, but now so has the president and his wife.
So the first thing that I heard this morning as I turned over in bed at about 6:30 is Paul saying, Trump has COVID.
Yeah.
What a thing to wake up to.
Yeah, what a thing to wake up to. And so we'll talk a bit about that. It's a really awkward kind of situation because he's spewed so much on us for the last 4 years and has been so cocky about no masks and, you know, this is a hoax, and there's a certain poetic justice in this, but at the same time, it gives you the creeps to actually be kind of feeling good about it on some level. And we'll talk more about that. I wanted to mention also that last week I had interviewed Maya Van Rossum, and she's the founder of the Green Amendments for the Generations organization, and she's a great interview. If you missed it, you can get it at retakeourdemocracy.org under the actions menu where we house our retake conversations. And she's working really hard in New Mexico to get a New Mexico Green Amendment on the in the legislature, and if it passes, then it would go to the voters to vote in a constitutional amendment. And the interesting thing about what this amendment is that it would essentially give all New Mexicans the right to clean air, clean water, and a clean environment. And you'd think that that would be a no-brainer, but of course, we're still working to get women to have equal rights in the United States. And so, you know, if we can't even do that, this could be a bit of a stretch.
Well, we started with clean air, clean water, many centuries ago. So we need to get that back. We deserve it. We all deserve it.
So next week, we will return to our regular shows, and I'm going to be interviewing folks from the New Mexico State Public Bank Initiative. They were on about 3 months ago, and we're going to hear the progress they've made in terms of working with the legislature. I know that their bill is in draft from the Legislative Services Council and will be introduced in 2021. It will not be a study. It will be to launch a public bank. And so you'll want to listen into that because it'll be a very interesting show. And you can watch all of our past shows by going to retakeourdemocracy.org. And I just gave you the drill about retake conversations, so that's where you can find them. And if you're driving around town today and you don't catch all the show, the recording will be up on the website by midday Saturday. And while you're at our website, if the recent events, whether it's the debate or the COVID, aren't enough to motivate you, It's time to get really involved in the election. And Retake has a Retake election strategy. It's got 4 parts to it. One on the national level, one on the state level, one for just getting out the vote, and one for really working with friends in teams. And so we've laid out all of that on the website. And, you know, it's just, we have to put an end to this chaos. We just have to put an end to this. It's been 4 withering years. And we're going to talk a bit about that later in the conversation as well, because I think that given all that's been going on, the chaos and, you know, the personal pains we've had, the personal compromises we've made, for many of us who are older, to just observe the sacrifices our kids are making, the compromises to their careers and their families and their social life, all of this has been, you know, it's been 6 months. 6 months, and the best case scenario is 6 more months.
Yeah. Well, I want to say something about that, Paul, because this is something I think about a lot these days, about how this kind of stress, everything that we feel like we're, you know, most Americans are going through now. Well, there are a lot of people, not just Americans, around the world, whose daily lives have been stressful from day one. You know, people who are living in poverty, people.
And you mean even before COVID?
Oh yeah. I don't mean day one COVID. I mean day one of their lives and everything that they go through. And for people like us who are relatively privileged and comfortable, you know, it's hard for me to feel too sorry for myself or to feel like we've got it bad, because we don't. I mean, we're just getting a taste of the kind of, I don't know what I call it, oppression and limits that are put on some people. People have been experiencing that their whole lives. So, you know, we just have to put it in perspective.
Yeah, and then, you know, the other side to that in terms of COVID is that while we're experiencing, you know, it's no party, God, the people who have to go to the market and work, and that have to go to offices and work, they're putting their lives at risk every day.
Teachers.
Or teachers, yes, nurses, all the health personnel. And then when you think about, you know, the recession, I read an article yesterday that said that this recession was the most unequal of any recession in US history in terms of who it impacted. It's impacting mostly the young, mostly communities of color, mostly the poor, the essential workers. And so we need to think about that. And this is a circuitous way of getting back to how I started this. And that is, we have a moral responsibility to participate in this election. And that doesn't mean just vote. That means you getting on the phone to friends. That means you're sending out emails to friends. And it's just not enough to cast the ballot and put the nice sticker on your shirt saying I voted. I wish we could printed up stickers that said I've been active for the last 3 months. I mean, because that's what it's really going to take. And the polls are showing that some people are doing that. So there's some reason for optimism right now.
Right. And speaking of that, I mean, I know some of you can't go vote in person, and we were going to do absentee ballot, and it's probably not going to be an issue here in New Mexico, but if you have family, friends in other states where it will be an issue, you know, please encourage them to try to vote in person, although I know that's going to be an issue too with the reduction in the numbers of voting places. I don't know, there is no great solution to this, but just vote, get everybody you know to vote. That's the most important thing. And if you can vote in person, early voting in person to avoid the crowds, like at the county clerk's office, that's what we're going to do probably
next week,
sometime next week.
Yeah. So again, go to retakeourdemocracy.org. Right in the banner is an elections menu. Click on that, and when you get to that page, it'll have a brief description of each of our 4 strategies with links to each one of them. you can have an impact, particularly if you have friends in other states that are swing states or key Senate races. And later on, because some of this is going to start to get to be kind of stiff news, but there is reason for hope right now. The polls are showing that if the votes are all counted, Biden, and Lord knows what's going to happen next, but assuming it's not too crazy, which is a crazy assumption in itself, we should easily win this election. In fact, we should have a landslide. And so on November 4th, hopefully we'll all meet in the plaza and virtual hug and scream and yell.
We'll have to cruise in our cars.
Cruise in our cars, or cruisers for democracy. But I'd like to also mention that on Monday, next Monday, the October 5th, this coming Monday,
yes,
October 5th, right around the corner. We will be discussing the Amendment 1 to the New Mexico State Constitution, and that's the constitutional amendment that would reduce the number of PRC commissioners from 5 to 3, and make it so that we're no longer elected by you, but selected by the governor. And no doubt the PRC has been inconsistent in its ability to protect ratepayers and the environment, especially in the distant past. But of late, they've been pretty darn good. In fact, their most recent decision to insist that PNM use 100% renewables as replacement power for San Juan, that was an outstanding decision. So there's a lot of pros and cons on this, and we're going to discuss this with a panel of 2, with one speaker speaking for the amendment and one speaking opposed. Speaking in opposition will be Joe Maestas. He's the former mayor of Española, a former city councilor for Santa Fe, and he's a current candidate for the PRC. And speaking in support of the amendment will be Noah Long, who's the Western Regional Director for Climate and Clean Energy for the Natural Resources Defense Council. And so both of them will be there. We're going to be as unbiased as we possibly can. And then immediately after the debate, within a day or so, we'll be posting Retake's position on the amendment, along with a series of recommendations for down ballot elections in Taos, in Las Cruces, in Albuquerque, and in Silver City, and of course in Santa Fe. And that will probably be posted early next week or middle of next week. Finally, on Friday, Retake posted a really important blog. It took 2 weeks of work to develop this blog. I worked especially closely with Norm Gaum, who is the former director of the Interstate Streams Commission and is really one of the state's foremost experts on water policy, water quality, and water management. We probably went through 5 or 10 different drafts, and then Roxanne took on the daunting task of trying to make it actually clear, and I think she did an excellent job at that. It's a really, really, really important post, and it really lays out what a mess we're in, to be honest. Most all of you understand that we are living in an arid climate in New Mexico, and that we're experiencing a severe drought with the complications and consequences of climate crisis exacerbating by the month.
Well, and people, a lot of people, most people in New Mexico are really good at conserving water on an individual basis, on a household basis. I think Santa Fe has one of the lowest, gallons per day per household in the country. But what you'll learn from this research, this post that went up Friday, yesterday, is that doesn't, all that residential water use is just a small fraction of the amount of water we're using in the state. It's really 80% to agriculture. So something to think about. But Did you want me to go over
Yeah,
some of
she's
the
gonna,
points?
in the very beginning, we had a series of bullets that kind of outlined the situation, and Roxanne's gonna take that on now.
Okay, sure. So one of the things that we want to point out, and you'll read more about in the blog post, is that New Mexico gets its surface water from rivers that flow mostly north and south. And the use of that water is regulated by binding US Supreme Court decisions that require the state of New Mexico to deliver a certain amount of water that comes from north from Colorado down into our state to the pueblos and the tribes, to residents and people in southern New Mexico, to Texas and to Mexico. And we have not been living up to those agreements. So we talk a lot about that in the post. Also, as a state, we have not devoted the resources we need to get an accurate picture of our water use. So that leaves policymakers, legislators, and regulators not knowing how much water are we using, who's using it, you know, and where, and how is it being used? Is there any water being wasted? It's just not monitored, which is a crime. And so despite the fact that we're clearly in an arid climate, I mean, it was an arid climate before climate change came. I mean, it's a dry state, but now we're in an extended drought. But we are using 80% of our water in this state for agriculture. And agriculture, I mean, nothing wrong with agriculture, that's great, but agriculture is only 5% of the state's economy in terms of revenue. So, and the largest crop in the state is alfalfa. And that's, you know, people don't eat alfalfa, but
I don't, no.
It's actually really good for you if you take alfalfa tablets. It's got a lot of minerals. I used to take them years ago.
Is that why
Trace
the
minerals.
cows are so healthy?
It's a very water intensive crop, and pecans too, another very water intensive crop. It's not really the kinds of things that we should be growing in this state. And the alfalfa, by the way, is really primarily feeding the cattle and dairy industry. That's what that's all about. So read more about that. Oh yeah, that was your next point. It's fueling the meteoric growth in our dairy and cattle industry. And the dairy and cattle industry obviously is a huge polluter of our water systems. So part of the problem, our water laws in this state are more than 100 years old. They were created during a time when we had, you know, enough water, and we had a very sparse population, and we had an economy that was just emerging. So those laws are so outdated, they're completely ill-equipped to deal with the water needs of now in the state, the growing population, the expanding agriculture industry, and unfortunately, the use of water, fresh water in fracking operations. So of course, this is all compounded by climate change. It's reduced our snowpack and our early season runoff. We have increased water evaporation from the warmer temperatures, and of course, erratic precipitation. I mean, this summer, whatever happened? No monsoons.
At least in Santa Fe, I guess they had them in Albuquerque.
Southern, yeah, or further south, there was more rain.
We had virtually no rain since March.
Yeah, and nothing on the horizon. So, you know, it's true that state leadership has really not taken responsibility and really looked at these conditions and come up with a plan to, first of all, amend the water laws and, you know, so that we can manage our water in the 21st century and become water stewards and to deliver the water that we've promised to the pueblos and the tribes, southern New Mexico, Texas, and Mexico. That's going to be a huge cost to taxpayers if we renege on those compacts.
Right.
Enormous, millions and millions of dollars in fines.
So the details are all in this. And there is promising news here too. Our governor has a 50-year water plan from her election campaign. She tried to get the legislature in 2019 to offer $750,000 to develop that plan. It's a good outline, but it's only an outline. And the legislature balked at providing the funds. And but we also have some legislative leadership in the New Mexico State House, and Melanie Stansberry, and she's been an expert. She's been on the radio show, and she talks about water policy on our radio show, which you can also get at the retakeourdemocracy.org under the actions and events page and Retake Conversations. And she's really an expert, and she has been working very hard these last months, maybe years, to develop legislation that can untangle the New Mexico state laws, water laws, and help it work for us. So to read more about all of this, go to retakeourdemocracy.org and just look for today's Friday's post, and that should, rotate up to the top, very quickly. That's enough for today, really. We've got a good deal to talk about, and we only got 9 minutes left.
We're not done yet.
We're not done yet. No, I meant in terms of announcements. We're going to go and talk a little bit about the election now.
The current state of affairs.
And so, I think everybody, if you don't know by now, that the Trumps have tested positive, and that Donald Trump is starting to experience some reasonably significant symptoms, like a fever and a cough, But I'm just curious, Roxanne, we've talked a bit about it. What was your initial reaction, and where have you gone from then?
Well, I'm not proud of my initial reaction, but part of me was just like...
You were half awake.
Part of me was just like, serves you right. I mean, I don't wish anyone to be ill or to die, but, you just can't ignore, that's like putting it kindly, ignore these things and not expect to have any consequences. There have been consequences for thousands, millions of people in this country. And now Donald Trump himself is getting some consequences. The way that things have gone, like I was reading that during the presidential debate last Tuesday, the health officials were asking the Trump campaign people and family to put on masks, and they refused to wear masks.
Yeah.
So, you just can't go around ignoring the experts and ignoring science and not expect something to happen. Yeah. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Well, and he had the temerity, after finding out that his aide, who had been in the helicopter with him, flying to,
and on Air Force One,
that she had tested positive. He then went from the debate to a closed door, indoor fundraiser at a golf course, at some resort, no doubt, and no masks, no distancing. And so who knows how many people he has now personally exposed to this virus. I just don't know. I'm out of words with this. It's like poetic justice in some ways. And yet I have to admit that I sit here and think about, not so much about his health and what happens to him, because frankly, I don't care what happens to this man, except that he get out of the White House. Mm-hmm. He has destroyed this country, practically destroyed this country, and divided it. And, it's a little unrealistic to expect people to show a lot of compassion and mercy when this, like Roxanne said, he's sort of brought this on himself, ignoring all kinds of, and he's been bringing together his supporters into arenas with 5, 6, 7,000 people, all in close quarters and none wearing masks, and now this. So I don't know.
Maybe they'll wake up finally. I don't know.
I've been saying that for a long time. I can't tell you how many times Roxanne's just raised her eyes at me when I've said, "Oh, did you hear this? Maybe they'll start to wake up."
No, you're always saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." Just right. Like during the debate, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." I go, "That's Donald Trump. That's how he always acts. Why do we expect him to act any differently?"
One thing I've forgotten to do is we have to remind our listeners that are listening to KSFR 101.1 FM our public radio station here in Santa Fe, or streaming live on ksfr.org. And I always like to encourage our listeners to go to the website at ksfr.org and make a donation and view it as a kind of ticket for admission to some really great programming. And station like KSFR is so important because it provides real news, not fake news, and it delivers really good culturally relevant, socially relevant information and programming on a daily basis with a whole host of hosts like me who are volunteers. But
A host of hosts?
Host of hosts. And back at the station rather, there are people who get paid to make the thing work, and sound engineers and radio engineers and managers and program
managers,
people,
yeah.
and also just the cost of equipment and facilities. So please support them. KSFR.org, click the donate button. So what did you think of the debate? You managed for about 40 minutes.
No, I think I was there for an hour and I just couldn't take it anymore. Just too much. I think that happened to a lot of people. You know, I tried to hang in, but I just couldn't stand it. Well, let's hope that one of the changes is a mute button, but then apparently Trump has said he's not going to participate if there's a mute button. Oh, surprise, surprise. Well, he
doesn't look like he's going to
participate. He may not be participating for other reasons. Yeah, I mean, that's what, less than 2 weeks away. It was 2 weeks yesterday that the next debate is scheduled. I'm guessing, you know, if he sounds like he is getting sick, even if he's makes it through this, may not be well enough to participate on the 15th. And so now, of course,
I'd say without COVID, he's not well enough.
They're
to
pointing out that the vice presidential debate is going to rise in importance. And, you know, Kamala Harris is pretty amazing. I think she's a great debater. I don't really know anything about Pence. I don't know if he's ever, I guess he was in a debate in the last presidential election. I think Kamala Harris could easily win a debate with Mike Pence. You know, Trump, even if he's feeling better, I mean, he may turn around and just say, I'm not going to participate in any more debates.
Yeah.
You know, because his behavior in that last one, I mean, he was just a bully. I mean, it's all based on not having to really talk about the issues because he doesn't know much about issues, but just to be a bully and to draw all the attention to himself. And so, you know, it may not even happen.
Yeah.
That may be it on presidential debates.
So we had planned to actually spend a good deal more time talking about how to keep your hopes up in this crazy time. I'm going to sort of wind down the conversation by reading something. We get Heather Cox Richardson's letters to from an American.
It's a blog.
It's a blog. Every morning she posts it at about 1 a.m. And this is what she posted today. Quote,
or the beginning.
Yeah.
Her post.
The very beginning. This evening, I talked to a woman who said she cannot read the news anymore. It's all just too much. If you feel this way, please understand that it is fine to look away when you need it. We are all exhausted, and we are entering a period that is going to be chaotic. Even a normal campaign year is crazy, but this year, the extraordinary chaos feeds the needs of this president to destabilize the country and emerge as a savior. The current chaos is designed to make you hopeless about creating change so that you give up. To combat that, look away and recharge your batteries. Focus on the things that ground you: family, friends, pets, gardening, movies, books, biking, church. Whatever works. Just come back when you can and remember to vote. It's going to be nuts from here on out. And she wrote that last night. So yep. We're out of time. You have any parting remarks?
Well, I just echo what Heather Cox Richardson said. Don't give up, people. We're in tough times, but we can make it through and we'll be stronger on the other side.
And we're going to take her advice. When we get done with this show, we're going to put on our hiking boots and visit the Aspens in the Sangres. So hope you can get out and get a little fresh air and keep your spirits up. And we'll be back next week. Thank you very much. And That's it for today.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody, and stay safe, healthy, and hopeful.